Hi, I'm Li Hao. In this video, I'm going to share with you tips and tricks to manage stores, complex stores in your Svelte application. I believe a lot of you love to learn about this. In fact, to prepare the content, the material of this video has been very difficult. Not all problems can be solved with one solution, right? Different applications, different stores, different logics requires different ways or methods to optimize them. So I try to look around in the front-end world, try to get some inspirations from different libraries or different frameworks out there, and try to summarize a few points, I would say tips, that you can use in your application. Of course, you shouldn't apply all these methods blindly to your application. Optimization is a science. You need to first measure before you do anything, right? You need to know whether there's a problem to be fixed in the first place. So over here, I have prepared an example, and hopefully that is real life enough. And in this example, I have two main issues that we are going to solve. So let's dive in and take a look at the example that I prepared for you. So over here, I have an app that is like a to-do list. So you can come in and type to-do. You type a checklist, say record a video. You can click add, can add more, edit my video, and let's say publish to YouTube. And oh, what? Okay, so something must be wrong in the logic over here, which we will take a look at what it is. But at the same time, take a look at here, there's a nav bar, and this is like a notification that shows you what has happened so far. And over here, I have my username. So when I click, I can change my username over here. So Li Hao's the best. Oh no, the worst. Okay, have fun. So let's take a look at, in terms of code, how this works. So over here, I have a nav bar. In the nav bar, I have a notification component that shows the notification. And then I have my username, and then I have my profile. So this edit profile is a buttons that will pop up, and then you make changes. So anytime when you make changes, you see over here, I edit the notification. So all the changes, for example, edit profile or add to do, I will insert a new entry to the notifications, right? So that the notifications, you can see that there's new events coming up, right? So all of this, the data itself comes from this file called data. So everything in this application is controlled from one store, one writable store, which is created using a writable. So I have a list of to-dos, notifications, users, so users information, right? So that's roughly about the application itself. So add to do, it's a form that you can add to do, and there's a to-do list that shows a list of to-dos. Okay, so if you want to follow along, I am going to share the link of this REPL will be in the description so that you can follow along with me. Right, so the problem that we faced just now, right, when I type something and type something again, okay, this time around, it seems like it's nothing wrong, but somehow in the first time when I create some to-dos, it's like gone immediately. So this is a problem with having a writable stores like this. You have a writable stores with a to-do, and basically you allow people to change the to-dos anywhere, right? Anyone who imports this will be able to change it. We change it over here in the to-do list where we come over here and we, mark some to do to be done. Over on the other side, and add to dos, we push into the list. So anyone who imports this file can change the to dos. So we kind of have no way to enforce like what can be done by to dos, right? So just previously we add a few to dos and suddenly the to dos is gone. It shouldn't be something that is being allowed. So let's try to find out the bug. Over here, let's say, okay, so whenever we want to change the to-dos, probably we'll access to data.to-dos, right? So let's search for this. There's there's only one place that makes this change. Access to data.to-dos. Okay, so let's not change in this file. Let's try to search over here, edit profile. No. Okay, how about navbar? Okay, we check if the to-dos length, and then this will show the to-dos length. Okay, so this is filter, this is length. Okay, everything looks okay, normal. How about notifications? Nothing. Okay, to-do list. Okay, you filter the to-do. This is showing the count, and then we loop through to-dos. This is okay. We are removing something, splice, but this is in a delete button, so it's supposed to just slice off one item. So I don't think that's about it. Let's see, data, nothing wrong. Okay, nothing's wrong over here. App.svelte. So nothing's wrong at here. So but then something is wrong, right? If I try to add again, it's all gone. Something is wrong, but I can't find where it is. So if your application is getting bigger and bigger, you have code all over the place, and you have a writable that is like this, that allows you to modify the to-dos within that writable object any way you like, then you have a problem, right? This is not about whether your to-dos is like, you can have a writable that is an array as a to-do. But if you pass this to-do store anywhere, anyone can change it, anyone can modify it as they want, and it's very hard to track that. It's not just searching for to-dos. To-dos can be renamed. You can change, assign it to another variable, and then do something about it and subscribe to the store and stuff like that. You can't really find out where it's going wrong. So, and this is not a new problem. When you have a big state, this is bound to happen because anyone around anywhere in your code can change that state. In fact, a few years ago, I think many years ago, Facebook has come up with a architecture to handle states, which is called the flux architecture. And you can take a look at this. The links will be in the description. But basically, the idea is this: the way that they want to design is that they want to design a single directional flow of the data, right? So you have your store, and then store changes will go to your view. That is okay. But then anyone can change the store, which is not so okay. So we want to draw out the boundary. We want to create one more abstraction, which is called action. Anytime when you want to make changes to a store, you should make an action, call an action, dispatch an action, and then the action itself will modify the store. So no one can modify a store except actions, right? And I believe if you are very familiar with React, well, this sounds very familiar with you. This is actually one of a very famous implementation of this Flux architecture is the Redux library, right? Every time when you want to make changes to the store, you have to dispatch an action, and the action will change the value of the store. And the changes is being made in one unit of code, which is in Redux is called reducer, but it does not have to be a reducer, but the logic is there, anyone, the only logic to make changes to the store is contained in one unit, and anywhere else in the code, if they want to make changes to the store, they will have to dispatch an action. And then if you make the action easy enough to be looked for, then it's easy to figure out where went wrong, right? So you can trace out who is dispatching this action, and then figure out why is this place dispatching that action. Right, so we can borrow this idea, right? Maybe let me come out with another example library that maybe some of you all are more excited about, that, which is a state machine library, right? A state machine is also a state. No one can change the state except actions that's being done onto the machine itself, right? Every time when you make some changes, you have to say, okay, based on this state that I am at right now, and these are the actions that I can receive, and only when all these actions coming into my state, I will derive a new state, and then again, right? So no one is modifying the state directly. They all make changes through actions, and that is how you can make control your data flow from your application. You can control who make changes, right? By you controlling who making the actions. So over here, let's make a very simple modifications to our code right now, right? We want to provide some API to make changes to the to-dos, so that if you want to make changes to to-dos, you have to make it this way. So I'm gonna provide some API, for example, add to-do data, and this is okay. I'm gonna call this data, right? So new to do. Whenever I have a new to do, I need to come over here and update data. So data.todos new to do. Right, so I'm going to come out with a few methods that I approve of to make changes to the to-do stores. And okay, so I'm going to create more of this, right? And in the meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze the to-do. I'm going to freeze it so that this is just for demonstration only, right? I'm gonna freeze the to-do such that whenever I make changes, I can't, right? So you have to call add to-do in this case. So I'm gonna freeze it every time when I create a new to-do. So I'm gonna come over here, add to-do. This is at the add to-do.svelte. Come over here. I'm gonna say add to-do. Right, this is something new. Okay, and let's see, add to do. Okay. Okay, this is working. Okay, so we are going to handle the done and delete as well. But I think the rough idea is clear for you. We are going to we should have methods that allows us to modify the to-dos directly, and then only call this methods from outside, from your view, so that you know that we have one file that has we have every functions that modify the state of the store in one place, and everyone else just call these functions, right? So that you have a clearer control, better control of your states of your application. Of course, this is a very simple example. If you have slightly more complex stores, more complex logics, I would definitely recommend you to look at state management libraries and then see how you can incorporate them using stars. And in fact, I've created some videos, links on the description on, say, how you can use a state machine library, xstates, as a star, or how you can use Redux as a star, right? The ideas are the same. They allows you to have a better control of how your state changes from one to another. Of course, once we done like having our state freeze right now, we kind of we probably have a better sense of where this comes from, right? Because if I change right now, if we're gonna change the state a few times, you'll see an error. And let's just trace where this error comes from. Okay, this is bad. This is not easy to trace, but because I prepared this example, I know where it comes from. It's actually coming from here. See, somewhere someone just leave this code. Maybe because of testing, they want to test something on the to-dos. It says that if notification length is 3, I'm gonna remove everything from the to-dos. So this is the point, right? You could have code written anywhere like this, and it will be very hard for you to trace out where it is. So I'm gonna remove this, and hopefully we fix our issue, right? When I'm trying to create more, it's not deleted, it's not cleared right now, and we've solved this. So tip number 1 is, if you want to have a complex store that has complex logics, it's better to use some state management libraries or write out your own reducer kind of thing or state machine kind of thing to manage your store. Or else it will be a huge mess if you allow any components to make changes to the store directly. Of course, some of you may have doubts or concerns about using libraries like Redux, right? I think this stems from overusing Redux, right? Not all the states are complex. You don't have to use it in every situation, but only when cases where the store logic itself is complex, then probably the idea that Redux have may be helpful for you, right? And also one thing that stems from that is a huge stores, right? Somehow we end up with having a very huge Redux stores in our application as the applications go big, and this is something that will have effect as well. And let's take a look at our example. In our example, we have a data store that has to-dos, notifications, and users, which means that anytime when you change something, like change a username, you have to change the store. And change the store, which means that the whole store is being invalidated. Anywhere that is subscribing the store will get notified and then try to see whether they should update their component, right? To demonstrate this, I write a simple utility over here called mark updated, and I apply it to all the components over here. So I've applied this mark update for each of the components, like the navbar, the add to do, the to do list, and also notifications and edit profile. So every time we make changes to the states, you see that it will turn red, right? It will turn red every time I add a to do. It will turn red on places that has updates, meaning places that because add to do changes the data, right? And anywhere that subscribes to the data store get notified and try to update its content, and that's where you see it will turn red outline. So if as you can see here, if I turn on this profile, you only see that this turns red because this is controlled using a locals state, right? Show, so only the local component will get updated. And if you come over here, you want to update your username. So this username is over here. This input, we binds this to the data.user.name, meaning that anytime when we change username, we have to update the data, and the whole data will be will be updated, and anywhere that subscribes to this data will get updated, right? So if I type something, you see everywhere turns red. Type again, all the places has a red outline. So that is bad, right? If you imagine that you have a lot of components then it is just dragging you down. And it doesn't have to be this way, right? So let's try to break this down. Let's try to make user and a separate store. Because user itself, the logic of user does not got to do with the to-dos and notifications. You change notifications or to-dos independent of your users. You don't have to know them together to make changes. So I'm gonna take out the users in its own store and come out export constant user equals to this writable and to use it, I'm going to come over places that uses the user store. Say the edit profile. I'm going to import from, I'm not sure I'm going to still use the data, but I definitely need user. I come over here and change it to subscribe to a user name. Okay, I still need data. Okay, let's see. This should be user name. And I think at the nav bar, I also need user. And change this to user name. And let's see what happens. Right, so if I turn on and I change something, only the nav bar turns red because only only the nav bar component is subscribing to this user store. And if you of course this is the highlighting itself is saying that this component itself will update. But of course, by Svelte actually has optimized that the update only happens to the element that only the elements that uses the information from user, and only when the information has changed. Right? Only this text element is gonna be updated by Svelte. But immediately you can see the changes, right? You can see that anytime when you do something, only the components itself only has changed. So that is tip number 2. Have your store small. Have a small store. Only store information that is needed for that store. And if you have separate concerns, then store it in a separate store. So that your component that subscribes to that store only concerns to the data that is needed for that store. Right? In our example, we've seen users. You don't need to know about users has changed anywhere else in the component. Then you can have user separately as a separate store. However, if unfortunate circumstances that you have to have a big complex store. For example, in this case, our to-do list is big and complex. You have an array of objects, and an object can contain a lot of information. And if, for example, in this case, in our nav bar, take a look at our nav bar. Whenever we add a to-do, it will have to be updated because it updates the count. Right? Every time we mark something as done, it will have to update itself as well. So that is an unfortunate circumstances. But there's something else we can do as to help this, to alleviate this, which is to use a derived store. So for example, if I come over here, I'm gonna import derive. While I'm typing, let me explain like why this helps. Right, so over here, in our application over here, we are subscribing to the data because we need the data.todos length. We need the length of the to-dos. We need the length of the to-dos that is filtered out for those that has marked as done. And we need the length of notifications. But if we are changing the to-do, right, we just change the to-do anywhere, we still get notified that the data has changed. And when we check the length and filter out everything and check the length, it's actually the same number, right? Of course, Svelte will not do any updates to your component over here. It will see that, if it's the same text value, it will not update it. But then there's still an update cycle happening in your component, which means that if you have life cycle events, for example, if you register before updates or after updates in your component, they'll still be triggered and run. So what can you do? What we can do is we can create derived store, derive a new store from the existing data. And if the derived store value does not change, then there will no update cycle happening in your components. So we're gonna create a few store over here because we have three different things, right? First is we have the to-dos length derived from data, and then data equals to data to-dos length. We also have a let's see, notifications. So it derives from data, but then data.notification length. And then I have a to-dos done length, right? Done length. I'm gonna copy it over this and paste it over here. So I'm gonna replace them over like this. To-dos length. Okay, this over here. To-dos length over here. Notifications length over here. Now, okay, let's see what is missing. Okay, so then if we come over here and mark the do laundry as done, it's not supposed to be updated, but I'm not sure you can see it clearly. So I'm gonna come over mark updated and make every element with some margin. Let's see, 8 pixels of margin. Right, so then let's try this again. If I come over and click done, you see that this whole nav bar is not does not go through an update cycle. Right, if I try to add a few to do, come over here, mark as done. This does not go through the update cycle because we're not updating to data, the data store. We're only subscribing to 3 stores: the to-do length, to-do's done length, and notifications length. And when you click on the done button, the length does not change yet. So in that sense, nothing has changed yet. They are subscribing to the data and they are updating the store value, but then the value is not changed yet. So in this component, when we are subscribing to these stores, we are not getting notified. Therefore, that we are not going through an update cycle. Of course, this may be contrived. I think in some sense it may be over optimizing, but of course you have to look at it by case basis. And in this example, definitely is a contrived example where we check about the length. Sometimes we want to know about certain to-do item, that is whether it is certain to-do in this list. So sometimes you have a store that is an array, and then you want to check a certain item within that array, a certain property of it, whether it has changed. Things like that, right? And if you can create a derived store out of it and only subscribe to that derived store, then although the derived store gets we'll keep evaluating to get that new value out of it, but if the value itself is a primitive and it does not change, then the component that subscribes to that derived store will not go through an update cycle, right? So when I say update cycle, is a cycle that goes through like checking, running through before updates, update after update life cycle, and also checking through like what are the values, that any expressions over here, and check their values, see whether they have changed or not, right? So it does not go through that. Of course, you can also come out this, I'm not sure whether it rings a bell to you, but you can also have your store that is immutable based store. So I've done a video links in the description as well on how you can make your store to be immutable. So an immutable store allows you to know what are the things that will change, right? So if you have a big complex store that has unfortunate situation, you have to have a big complex store. Immutable store allows you that if you change one place, then only part of that store has changed. The identity has changed, right? It changed the reference of the object. So the rest of the store, you can still subscribe and still does not get notified because that part of the store has not changed yet, right? Or you can come up with a proxy-based store. Proxy allows you to change part of the state object, and you can subscribe to part of the state object and get notified only that part of the things that you subscribe has changed, right? So I've done another video about using Svelte. Svelte is a proxy-based state management library. So you can use Svelte to create your store so that only if that part of the states that you're interested has changed, you get you get notified and go through the update cycles if only necessary, right? So that is tips number 3. Use some immutable store or proxy-based store, or you can come up with your own derived store that only subscribes to a small part of the store that you are concerning about, so that your component does not have to go through update cycles to updates everything when the things that you're concerning is not updating at all. It's not updated at all, right? So I have 3 tips for you, and hopefully that is useful for serve as a good guide for you to think about how you can manage your store in a Svelte application and how you can optimize your application. So which tips do you find the most helpful? Comments down below to let us know. Right, so if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to my channel so that you get notified when the next video is out. So see ya, bye bye.